Footage emerged on social media of the 5th Separate Assault Regiment of the Ukrainian ground forces operating in Donetsk Oblast targeting Putin's troops. Ukrainian soldiers have released rare footage of their counter-attacks against Russian forces in the eastern regions. In the footage, 3 Ukrainian soldiers can be seen slowly advancing on Russian forces before they are fired at. The clip shows one of the soldiers shooting at the Russian troops with an assault rifle. Later, the 5th Separate Assault Regiment used truck-mounted missile systems to fire from distance at Russian troops in Donetsk Oblast. They then shield in a makeshift trench, strategizing how to advance further in the region and then walk through a local town abandoned by Russian troops. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelenskyy lauded his nation's counter-attacks in the east of the nation on Friday. Mr. Zelenskyy, having visited the recently liberated town of Izium, praised the rapidity of the attacks and called for further Western weapons supplies to bolster those successes. But he added that it was too early to talk about an end to this war, as Russian President Vladimir Putin showed no interest in backing down. Speaking at a summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and discussing the war publicly for the first time since Ukraine routed Russian troops in the Kharkiv region last week, Putin threatened strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure, and said, "We will see how Ukraine's counteroffensive ends." He also accused the West of wanting to break up Russia, and said that he had sent Russia's armed forces into Ukraine in February in order to prevent this. As Ukrainian forces regain territory in the east, areas that have been lost to Russia for several months, officials have claimed they are uncovering mass graves and further evidence of Russian war crimes. Mr. Zelenskyy accused Russia on Friday of torture and war crimes in Ukraine's northeast and likened the aftermath in the recaptured areas to Russia's withdrawal from near Kyiv months ago. In an interview at his presidential office, he said that many Ukrainians were buried at sites in the northeast, including whole families and people who were tortured. As of today, there are 450 dead people buried. But there are others, separate burials of many people. Tortured people. Entire families in certain territories, he said. Asked if there was evidence of war crimes, he said, "All this is there." Investigative commissions with international partners, joint investigative commissions. There is some evidence, and assessments are being conducted, Ukrainian and international, and this is very important for us, for the world to recognize this. Russia regularly denies targeting civilians during what it calls its special military operation in Ukraine and has said in the past that accusations of human rights abuses are a smear campaign. The governor of Kharkiv region, Oleh Sinhabov, told reporters on Friday at one of the burial sites in the city of Izium that some bodies exhumed there had been found with their hands tied behind their backs. Moscow has not commented on the mass burial site in Izium, which was a Russian frontline stronghold before Ukraine's counter-offensive forced its forces to flee. But the top U.S. general on Friday said war crimes in Ukraine cannot be hidden, though he added he would reserve judgments on the atrocities for when there was clearer evidence of its extent. During a NATO gathering in Estonia, U.S. Army General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said, "In terms of the totality of the scale of potential war crimes, I don't know. But I would tell you that the world will discover that war crimes cannot be hidden, especially things like mass graves." Ukraine's counteroffensive is delivering big gains in territory, plus a large number of Russian military vehicles that are set to be used against the invaders. Since President Vladimir Putin launched his full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24, open-source tracker Oryx has been keeping tabs on Russian equipment. It monitors how many vehicles have been destroyed or seized, verifying this with photo or video evidence. Citing Oryx, Ukrainian news outlet TSN said Kyiv's forces had captured 388 pieces of Russian equipment between September 7 and 11. Of this total, 200 are in good condition. The Russian losses in that period include 49 tanks, 24 armored personnel carriers, 32 artillery vehicles and multiple launch rocket systems, MLRS, and 2 planes. According to the latest Oryx update, Russia has lost 1,122 tanks in total during the conflict. Of these, 671 have been destroyed, 51 abandoned, 44 damaged and 356 captured. The equipment will provide another boost to Kyiv's troops after Russian forces surrendered more than 3,100 square miles to their advance in around a week. Foreign Policy magazine has cited a Ukrainian military official as saying the seized equipment will be used against the Kremlin's fighters. They just left their tanks, artillery, special equipment, a lot of armor, and we're just trying to save their lives," said the official, speaking on condition of anonymity. They will be used against Russia. Since the counteroffensive began, a number of images have been shared on social media of Ukrainian soldiers posing in front of captured Russian tanks in Kharkiv. These images come as Ukraine renews calls for the US and its European allies to send tanks. Modern NATO-grade main battle tanks, such as the M1 Abrams or the German Leopard, are high on Kyiv's wish list, according to Foreign Policy. Kyiv has criticized Berlin for rejecting its request for tanks, although Germany has delivered howitzers and self-propelled anti-aircraft weapons. Gustav Gressel, senior policy fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations, has said Soviet-era T-72 tanks are playing an important role in Ukraine's counteroffensive and that Poland has backfilled Kyiv's forces, with deliveries also coming from Bulgaria and the Czech Republic. However, in emailed comments, Gressel said, "Ukraine will have to transition to Western tanks one way or the other," adding that there was an abundance of Leopard 2 tanks that could be delivered after a relatively short overhaul. He said crews in a Leopard 2 had a better chance of surviving a hit than troops in the T-72. With the war 7 months old, he added, experienced tank crews and commanders were increasingly rare on both sides. Using the Leopard 2 to equip Ukrainian armed forces would allow relatively fast supplies of significant quantities of tanks, Gressel said.
West.
Thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Do I stand next to you?
Don't forget to hit the like and
Where do I
subscribe
stand?
button so you can be alerted to our next video.
Where do I stand?
We'll see you again soon on Warzone.